fake person does not always arrive wearing a mask. Sometimes the mask is kindness. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is the calm voice that says, "I only want what is best for you," while quietly measuring what they can take. Think about it. The most dangerous people in your life are not always the ones who oppose you openly. Very often, they are the ones who stand close enough to learn your weakness, your hope, your loneliness, and your timing. They do not need to defeat you. They only need you to mistake their performance for sincerity. So stay with me until the end, because the deeper signs are not obvious. They are quiet. They appear in small moments, when pressure rises, when desire is delayed, when someone no longer benefits from pretending. And if this kind of reflection speaks to you, consider subscribing to this channel. Not for noise, not for entertainment alone, but for the kind of wisdom that helps you move through life with clearer eyes. Welcome back to Guiguzi Strategic Wisdom. I'm David Welbeck, the writer behind this video. Today, I want to sit with you and talk about a question that sounds simple, but has cost many people years of their life. How do you test if someone is truly genuine? Not charming, not polite, not useful, not impressive in public, genuine. There is a difference, and that difference can shape your marriage, your friendships, your work, your reputation, your peace, and the entire direction of your life. Because people do not usually suffer because they meet bad people once. They suffer because they misread people repeatedly. They ignore the small warning signs. They explain away the discomfort. They confuse intensity with loyalty, attention with care, agreement with character. This is where most people get it wrong. They test people by what they say when life is easy. But words are cheapest when nothing is at stake. A person can sound loyal when there is no cost. A person can seem humble when no one has challenged their ego. A person can look patient when everything is going their way. The real test of character begins when desire is blocked, when timing becomes inconvenient, when you say no, when you are no longer useful, when the room no longer rewards their performance. In the old language of strategy, you do not judge the river by the surface of the water. You watch what it carries when the storm comes. Human beings are the same. The surface may be graceful. The current may be something else entirely. The first way to test if someone is genuine is to watch how they behave when they do not get immediate access to what they want from you. Not when you agree, not when you praise them, not when you give them your time, your attention, your help, your emotional energy, or your trust. Watch them when you pause. Watch them when you delay. Watch them when you say, "Let me think about it." A genuine person can respect timing because they are not trying to own you. They may be disappointed, but they do not punish you for having boundaries. They may want closeness, but they do not demand control. They may have needs, but they do not turn their needs into your guilt. That is not weakness. That is maturity. Fake people often reveal themselves through impatience. Not always loud impatience. Sometimes it is subtle. A cold shift in tone. A sudden withdrawal. A little pressure disguised as concern. A joke that cuts more deeply than it should. A look that says, "After all I've done, you still won't give me what I want." Look at reality for what it is. When someone is genuine, your boundary gives them information. When someone is fake, your boundary gives them offense. Because to a fake person, your boundary is not a natural part of your inner life. It is an obstacle. It is a locked door. It is a delay between their desire and their reward. An instinct does not like delay. Human instinct wants access. It wants certainty. It wants control. When desire rises, self-control becomes the dividing line between character and performance. A mature person may feel the pull of desire, but they do not let that desire turn them into a manipulator. They have enough discipline to say, "I want this, but I will not violate another person to get it." That is where sincerity lives, not in the absence of desire, in the restraint of desire. I once knew someone at work who was liked by almost everyone. I will call her Karen. She was warm in meetings, quick to compliment, always available when higher-level people were nearby. If you listened only to her words, you would think she was generous, supportive, and deeply invested in everyone's success. But I noticed something small. Whenever someone could not help her immediately, her face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. A coworker once told her, calmly, that he could not stay late to help with a presentation because he had promised his family he would be home for dinner. Karen smiled and said she understood. But for the next 2 weeks, she stopped including him in small conversations. She left him out of updates. She spoke about him as if he were not committed. That was the test, not the presentation, not the deadline. The test was what happened after she did not get access to his time. Do you see the turning point here? A genuine person would have adjusted. A fake person kept score. That is why you should never ignore how people respond to your reasonable limits. In friendship, this may appear when you stop being constantly available. In family, it may appear when you stop playing the role everyone expects you to play. In work, it may appear when you refuse to sacrifice your own stability to protect someone else's image. In dating or marriage, it may appear when you ask for space, honesty, or time. The impatient will call your boundary selfish. The controlling will call your clarity cold. The fake will call your self-respect a betrayal. But a genuine person may not always understand you immediately, and still, they will not try to destroy you for needing room to breathe. The consequence of missing this sign is heavy. You may spend years around people who only love your usefulness. You may mistake their approval for care, when really they were only comfortable as long as you were convenient. You may train yourself to feel guilty every time you protect your peace, and slowly, without realizing it, you begin to lose yourself. You stop asking, "What is right?" You start asking, "How do I keep them from turning against me?" That is not relationship. That is captivity with polite language. So the first test is simple but not easy. Delay access. Create a small pause. Hold a boundary without anger. Then watch. Not what they say first. Watch what their character does after their desire has been denied. Because a person who cannot respect your timing will eventually try to control your fate. And someone who only treats you well when you are available to them was never truly seeing you. They were only seeing the door you opened. The second way to test if someone is genuine is to observe how they handle your moments of weakness. This one is delicate, because life has a way of exposing all of us eventually. No one stays strong all the time. No one stays composed forever. There are seasons when your confidence cracks, when your money gets tight, when your family becomes complicated, when your work falls apart, when your ambition gets delayed, when loneliness sits beside you like an old shadow. In those moments, the people around you reveal something. Some people step closer with quiet steadiness. Some step back with honesty, and some step closer only so they can study where you are vulnerable. That is not concern. That is strategy without compassion. A person inspired by real wisdom understands that weakness is sacred information. When someone shows you where they hurt, they are handing you something that can either heal them or be used against them. Mature people know this. Wise people handle another person's weakness with restraint. Fake people collect it. They may not use it right away. That is what makes it dangerous. They store your confession. They remember what embarrassed you. They remember the story you told when you were tired, grieving, confused, or in need. Later, when the relationship shifts, when jealousy rises, when conflict appears, they bring it back as a weapon. This is where most people get it wrong. They think betrayal begins when someone attacks them. No. Betrayal often begins much earlier, when someone listens without reverence. They appear gentle, but internally they are gathering leverage. The real question is not, can I open up to this person? The real question is, what do they become after I open up? Because a genuine person does not need your weakness to feel powerful. They do not become bigger by making you feel small. They do not turn your private pain into public currency. In everyday life, this shows up everywhere. A friend who comforts you during a breakup, then later repeats your private words to prove they know more about you than others do. A family member who offers help when you are struggling, then reminds you of that help every time you disagree with them. A coworker who listens to your doubts about a project, then quietly uses those doubts to make you look unstable in front of leadership. A partner who says, "You can tell me anything," but during conflict reaches for the exact wound you trusted them with. Think about it. The issue is not that people know your weakness. The issue is whether their character has enough discipline not to exploit it. That is the hidden law. Weakness does not create betrayal. It reveals who was already capable of betrayal. When instinct takes over, people want advantage. They want to win arguments. They want to secure their position. They want to protect their pride. And if someone has never trained their inner life, if they do not know how to govern resentment, envy, fear, or insecurity, they will use whatever weapon is closest. Sometimes that weapon is your own honesty. This is why sincerity cannot be measured only by tenderness in peaceful moments. Many people can act tender when they are receiving intimacy from you. But when tension comes, when their ego feels threatened, when they feel they are losing control, watch what they do with what they know about you. A genuine person may be upset with you, but they do not violate the dignity of what you revealed in trust. A fake person treats your vulnerability like ammunition they were patient enough to save. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. The consequence of ignoring this test is painful because it teaches you to become less human. You stop sharing. You stop trusting. You become careful with every sentence, even around people who claim to love you. And after a while, you may begin to think the problem is that you are too sensitive, too guarded, too difficult. But sometimes your guardedness is not a flaw. Sometimes it is the wisdom your pain earned for you. Do you see the turning point here? A wise person does not become cold. A wise person becomes selective. There is a difference. Coldness says, no one gets close. Selectiveness says, not everyone deserves access to what is tender in me. That is not bitterness. That is self-mastery. So the second test is this. Let someone see a small weakness, not your deepest wound, not everything at once, but something real enough to matter. Then watch what they do with it over time. Do they protect it? Do they respect it? Do they forget it when it is no longer relevant? Or do they return to it when they need power? Because the genuine person understands that trust is not a tool. It is a responsibility. And anyone who uses your weakness to control you was never standing beside you. They were standing over you, waiting for the right moment. The third way to test if someone is genuine is to watch how they behave when you succeed without needing them. This is one of the clearest tests in life, and still, many people miss it because envy often wears the face of concern. When you are struggling, some people can love you easily because your struggle makes them feel safe. Your uncertainty gives them a role. Your dependency gives them importance. Your need gives them a quiet sense of superiority. They may help you, comfort you, guide you, even protect you. But when you begin to rise, something changes. Your growth removes their advantage. Your clarity reduces their influence. Your success makes them confront something inside themselves. And that is where sincerity is tested. In the spirit of old strategic wisdom, I would put it this way. When the tree is small, everyone offers shade. When the tree grows tall, some begin to fear its shadow. Look at reality for what it is. Not everyone who helps you in your low season is prepared to celebrate you in your rising season. Some people are comfortable with your weakness because it gives them a place above you. But when you stand upright, they lose the position they built their identity around. This can happen in friendships. You start taking better care of yourself. You become more disciplined. You stop complaining as much. You begin making progress. And suddenly, a friend who once encouraged you now makes little comments. You've changed. You think you're better now? You don't have time for anyone anymore. The words sound casual, but underneath them there is a demand. Come back down. Be who I understood. Stay where I feel safe with you. It can happen in family. You become more independent, and the people who once called you irresponsible now resent you for no longer needing their permission. It can happen at work. You earn recognition, and the same coworker who called you talented begins to question your motives. It can happen in marriage or partnership. You grow emotionally stronger, and someone who benefited from your confusion becomes uncomfortable with your self-respect. This is where most people get it wrong. They think envy is always obvious. It is not. Envy can speak softly. It can hide behind advice. It can appear as worry. It can say, I just don't want you to get hurt, when what it really means is, I don't want you to become someone I can no longer manage. The real question is not, are they happy when I win? Many people can clap when the room is watching. The real question is, do they still treat me with warmth when my progress no longer benefits their image of themselves? That is a deeper test, because success changes the balance of a relationship. It changes the inner weather. It reveals who was connected to your soul and who was connected to your position. A genuine person does not need you to stay small for the relationship to remain stable. They may struggle with their own life. They may feel behind. They may even wrestle privately with comparison, because they are human. But they do not punish you for moving forward. They do not turn your growth into an insult against them. That is maturity. Not the absence of envy, but the discipline not to serve it. Fake people often cannot do this. Their instinct reacts before their character can govern it. Your progress becomes a mirror, and instead of asking, what can I learn from this? They ask, how do I reduce this person back to a size I can tolerate? So they minimize, they joke, they withhold praise, they change the subject. They remind you of who you used to be. They bring up your past mistakes at the exact moment your future begins to open. Not because the past matters, because control matters. Think about it. A person who truly loves you may warn you when you are becoming arrogant, reckless, or blind. That is real care. But a fake person warns you whenever you are becoming free. That is not wisdom. That is fear pretending to be guidance. There is a sharp difference. Real guidance protects you from losing yourself. Fake guidance protects someone else from losing control over you. Do you see the turning point here? The consequence of misjudging this is that you may shrink your life to preserve the comfort of people who never intended to grow with you. You may turn down opportunities because you do not want to be misunderstood. You may hide your ambition so others do not feel threatened. You may apologize for your discipline, your clarity, your better habits, your stronger boundaries, and slowly you begin betraying your own fate. Not in one dramatic decision, in small acts of self-erasure. You stop speaking about your dreams. You stop celebrating your wins. You stop taking up space. You become skilled at appearing less alive, just to keep peace with people who only loved you when you were unsure of yourself. That peace is expensive, and the bill always comes due. A genuine person gives you room to become more complete. They may not understand every step of your path, but they do not resent the light returning to your eyes. They do not need to own your journey in order to honor it. So the third test is this. Let someone see you rise. Not in arrogance, not in performance. Just honestly. Let them see you become more disciplined, more capable, more confident, more clear. Then watch. Do they become warmer or colder? Do they become honest or competitive? Do they remind you of your values, or do they try to drag you back into your old identity? Because fake people often love your potential only while it remains potential. Once it becomes reality, they start calling it a problem. The fourth way to test if someone is genuine is to watch what they do when there is no audience. This may be the purest test of all, because many people do not have character. They have theater. They know how to look generous when generosity can be seen. They know how to sound humble when humility improves their reputation. They know how to appear loyal when loyalty earns them approval. They know how to be gentle in public and cruel in private, respectful upward and dismissive downward, patient with strangers and careless with the people closest to them. That is not character. That is image management. In the spirit of strategic wisdom, I would say, the truest movement of a person is the one made when no one is recording, rewarding, or remembering. Modern life makes performance easy. Every kindness can become a story. Every opinion can become a signal. Every good deed can become proof of identity. People learn to curate themselves, to package their values, to arrange their emotions for maximum acceptance. But the inner life cannot be curated forever. Eventually, the private self speaks. It speaks in how someone treats the server when the order is wrong. It speaks in how they talk about absent friends. It speaks in whether they return what was not theirs. It speaks in whether they keep a promise after the moment has passed, and no one would blame them for forgetting. Look at everyday reality. At work, someone may speak beautifully about teamwork in a meeting, then quietly take credit for another person's contribution. In a family, someone may act loving when guests are present, then become cold and controlling once the door closes. In friendship, someone may defend you publicly because it improves their image, but privately feed the same rumors they claim to dislike. This is where most people get it wrong. They think public goodness proves private goodness. It does not. Public goodness may only prove social intelligence. The real question is not, how do they act when everyone is watching? The real question is, what do they protect when nobody can reward them? Because genuine people have an inner witness. They are not perfect. They fail. They get tired. They can be impatient, selfish, afraid, or mistaken. But somewhere inside, they have a line they do not want to cross, even when crossing it would benefit them. That line is called character. Fake people do not live by lines. They live by consequences. If there is no consequence, there is no restraint. And once you understand this, you begin to see people more clearly. You stop being hypnotized by public language. You stop confusing charm with depth. You stop believing that a person's reputation is the same as their soul. The consequence of ignoring this test is that you may attach yourself to someone whose goodness depends entirely on being seen. And that kind of person can be very dangerous in close relationships, because the closer you get, the less they feel the need to perform for you. They may treat strangers with grace and you with contempt. They may protect their image and neglect your heart. They may apologize in public and repeat the harm in private. That kind of contradiction can make you question your own mind. You may think, everyone else sees them as kind. Why do I feel so drained? Why do I feel so small? Why do I feel like I am living with a different person than the one the world admires? Because you are. You are meeting the private self, and the private self is the truth. The fifth way to test if someone is genuine is to watch how they handle truth when truth costs them comfort. This is the final test, because it gathers all the others into one place. Anyone can be kind when kindness is easy. Anyone can be loyal when loyalty is rewarded. Anyone can be patient when nothing they desire has been delayed. Anyone can appear sincere when the truth does not threaten their image. But the moment truth becomes inconvenient, character steps forward, or it disappears. In the spirit of old strategic wisdom, I would say, a person's real nature is not exposed by the truth they speak when it benefits them, but by the truth they can bear when it humbles them. Think about it. A fake person is not always a liar in the obvious sense. Sometimes they tell many truths. They may be accurate about facts. They may give sharp advice. They may expose the flaws of others with impressive clarity. But when the truth turns toward them, everything changes. Suddenly they become evasive. They become wounded. They become philosophical in the wrong moment. They say you misunderstood. They say your tone was wrong. They say the timing was bad. They bring up your past. They shift the subject. They make your reaction the issue so they never have to face their own action. That is not confusion. That is self-protection disguised as complexity. Look at reality for what it is. In a marriage, this may appear when one person says, "When you speak to me that way, I feel small," and instead of listening, the other person says, "So now I'm the villain?" In a friendship, it may appear when you say, "That hurt me," and the person responds by listing everything they have done for you. At work, it may appear when someone makes a mistake that affects the team, but instead of owning it, they create fog. They say the process was unclear. They say someone else should have reminded them. They say everyone is under pressure, and maybe some of that is true. But none of it answers the real question. Can you face what you did without needing to escape yourself? That is the test. The real question is not, does this person make mistakes? Everyone makes mistakes. The real question is, what do they do when the truth asks them to surrender their preferred image of themselves? Because fake people are often deeply attached to an image. They do not merely want to be good. They want to be seen as good. They do not merely want to be wise. They want to be treated as wise. They do not merely want love. They want the power that comes from being needed. admired, forgiven, or feared. And when truth threatens that image, they do not seek clarity, they seek escape. This is where most people get it wrong. They think apology proves sincerity. It does not. An apology can be another costume. Some people apologize to end the conversation, not to understand the harm. Some apologize because they fear consequences, not because they feel responsibility. Some apologize with beautiful words, then quietly punish you for making them say those words. That is not remorse. That is negotiation. A genuine person may not respond perfectly at first. They may need a moment. They may feel defensive. They may struggle to hear you. That is human. But if they are genuine, something in them eventually turns toward truth. They come back. They reflect. They ask, "What did I miss?" They care more about repairing reality than protecting their pride. That is maturity, not instant perfection. A willingness to be corrected by what is real. And this matters because life will not remain clean. Time will test every relationship. Work will test patience. Family will test old wounds. Marriage will test humility. Ambition will test loyalty. Social pressure will test identity. Loneliness will test judgment. Success will test friendship. Failure will test love. You cannot build a life with someone who only respects truth when it flatters them. You cannot trust someone who turns every honest conversation into a courtroom where they must win and you must be discredited. You cannot keep handing your inner life to someone who treats accountability like an attack. Sooner or later, the cost becomes too high. You begin choosing silence over honesty. You begin managing their emotions instead of living from your own clarity. You begin shrinking your truth so they do not feel exposed. You begin calling it peace, but it is not peace. It is surrender, and this is how many people lose themselves while trying to hold on to others. Not because they are weak, because they keep hoping that performance will become sincerity if they love someone long enough. But performance does not become sincerity through your patience. It only becomes more skilled. Do you see the turning point here? The genuine person can survive truth. The fake person can only survive praise. That is why truth is the final test. Not cruel truth, not impulsive truth, not truth used as a weapon, but clean truth, clear truth. Truth spoken with dignity. Truth that says, "This happened, this mattered. This is what I saw. This is what I need to understand." Then watch. Do they come closer to reality? Or do they drag you into confusion? Because when a person is sincere, truth may hurt their pride, but it does not destroy their bond with you. When a person is fake, truth feels like an enemy because it interrupts the story they are trying to sell. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. What truly reveals a fake person? Not one bad mood, not one mistake, not one moment of weakness. A fake person is revealed by the pattern of what happens when their desire is delayed, when your weakness is exposed, when your success no longer serves them, when no audience is watching, and when truth threatens their image. That is where the mask loosens. That is where the hidden law appears. A fake person is not revealed by the beauty of their words, but by the cost they are willing to make others pay in order to protect themselves. They may punish your boundaries. They may collect your weakness. They may resent your growth. They may perform goodness in public and neglect character in private. They may avoid truth whenever truth requires humility. And if you do not see the pattern, you may keep explaining each moment separately. You may say they were stressed, they were hurt, they were insecure, they did not mean it, They had a difficult past. They are better than this. Sometimes that may be true, but wisdom is not the same as excuse-making. Compassion does not require blindness. Patience does not require self-betrayal. The wise person does not watch only what people say. The wise person watches timing, watches pressure, watches restraint, watches what people do when instinct rises and no one forces them to be decent. Because so many people mistake performance for sincerity. They mistake emotional intensity for love. They mistake constant attention for loyalty. They mistake public kindness for private character. They mistake someone's ability to speak beautifully about values for the discipline to live by them when life becomes inconvenient. And this mistake is costly. It can cost years. It can cost peace. It can cost confidence. It can cost the quiet voice inside you that used to know when something felt wrong. So what should a wise person actually watch for? Watch what happens after the first impression fades. Watch what happens after you say no. Watch what happens after you trust them with something tender. Watch what happens after you begin to rise. Watch what happens when there is nothing to gain from being good. Watch what happens when truth asks them to lay down their pride. Not once, repeatedly. Patterns are more honest than promises. Time is more honest than charm. Pressure is more honest than presentation. And this is where maturity begins. A mature person is not a saint. They are not perfect. They do not walk through life without fear, envy, desire, irritation, or disappointment. They are human. They have shadows. They have history. They have wounds they are still learning how to carry. But a mature person knows what matters. They know what to protect. They know what to let go of. They know when to wait. They know when to act. They know that not every impulse deserves obedience. Not every desire deserves expression. Not every conflict must be won, and not every relationship should be saved at the cost of the self. That is wisdom in practical human terms. It is not floating above life. It is walking through life with enough clarity not to be ruled by every emotion, every performance, every fear of losing someone, every hunger to be accepted. A wise person learns that the heart must be open, but not unguarded. Trust must be offered, but not thrown away. Love must be generous, but not blind. And judgment must be calm enough to see what the eyes want to deny. Because fate often turns on small misjudgments. The person you trust too quickly, the boundary you fail to hold, the warning sign you explain away, the apology you accept without observing change, the private cruelty you excuse because the public image is so convincing, the opportunity you abandon because someone close to you felt threatened by your growth. These things do not always look important in the moment, but over time, they shape the road. And one day, you look back and realize your life did not change because of one great disaster. It changed because you kept giving access to people who had not earned it. So test gently. Watch quietly. Do not become paranoid. Do not become bitter. But do not be asleep. There is a calm way to see people. There is a disciplined way to care. There is a wiser way to love without handing your fate to every person who knows how to sound sincere. The genuine person will not be perfect, but over time, they will leave you with more peace than confusion, more steadiness than fear, more truth than performance. And the fake person, no matter how polished, will eventually leave a pattern of pressure, possession, resentment, contradiction, and escape. That pattern is the answer. Thank you for staying until the end. This is Gwiguzi Strategic Wisdom. If this reflection gave language to something you have lived through, consider subscribing if you have not already. Share this video with someone who may need to hear it before they misjudge the wrong person, and leave a comment with your own thoughts or experience. Because sometimes another person's story becomes the warning someone else needed. Continue the journey with this channel. Keep your heart clear. Keep your judgment calm. And remember, sincerity is not proven by how someone appears when life is easy. It is revealed by what remains when desire, pressure, truth, and time have done their work. I'm David Welbeck, the writer behind these videos. I'll see you in the next one.